Despite us living in the most connected time period thanks to technology and social media, we have high reports of people feeling disconnected and lonely. But I have a sneaky feeling that people would feel less lonely if they were a little bit more willing to feel inconvenienced. Hear me out. I completely understand how difficult it is to feel a sense of community, especially in a Western society that forces you to be hyper individualistic. I'm not going to act like this isn't the case. In fact, this is the exact reason why I think it's important. More on that in a bit. But we are quite literally forced to prioritize ourselves over community to survive. Yes, it's true that humans always had to find food and make food for themselves, but today it feels like an exhausting task rather than one that is meant to nourish you and fuel you, because it's just an addition to the things you have to do after a 40-hour, 50-hour, 80-hour work week, depending on the industry that you're in. And I know you're in an industry because you have to be in an industry, because opting out of hustle culture can be detrimental to your finances. In fact, in many areas in Canada, the UK, the US, you must opt into hustle culture in terms of working long hours and making the dough so you can pay your rent and afford the cost of living. All of this does make it extremely easy to feel disconnected. And on top of that, thanks to hustle culture, we have these big corporations that actually mostly benefit off of us not leaning on community. When you think about Uber, DoorDash, food delivery services, even like Klarna, for example. A big reason why a lot of these businesses work is because we lost our sense of community. All this to say, we live in a world designed to make us lonelier. What that means then is that we must take drastic action to change it or simply not be a part of the problem if it is something you care about. And that's what I want to unpack today. Hello, my name is Danae. I'm super excited for today's yap. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, you can listen to the audio version on Spotify at Pretty Philosophical with Danae Seaton. It's always linked in the description. So when this conversation comes up, I always remember this moment I had a couple years ago with my mom. Her and I were going on a trip and we had a really early morning flight, super, super early. And she is in the boomer generation. I'm Gen Z. And we were just having a conversation the night before about how we were going to get to the airport. And my first instinct as a Gen Z was like, oh, we'll just call it Uber. We'll call it Lyft. Like boom, boom, boom. Like, you know what I mean? Her first instinct was, oh, we could call like one of her brothers or some family member, a cousin, whatever. And that moment really stuck with me because it was like we both had completely different instincts for that particular situation. And I realized then, despite her views on technology and apps and all of these things, majority of her life, especially also a boomer and as an immigrant, was relying on community, which I think is a good thing. Knowing that you have to sacrifice sometimes for your community because you guys are always paying each other back by your sacrifices. Majority of her life, she relied on her community. And she has this understanding that a lot of times you do things that feel that are inconvenience for your community because that's the way that the community works. Also, what I think is more amazing is actually that we did end up getting the Uber, but actually if she did call a brother or a cousin, they would do it because that's the precedent that they grew up on and that was set between each other. But for someone like me who didn't grow up in an environment like this, especially I'm an only child, so I didn't have siblings to call or anything like that. It's like I'm growing up with all of these tools or apps or businesses, as we discussed before, that make things convenient. My first instinct is not to rely on a community or build a community to rely on, and vice versa, to know that I need to show up in the world in a certain way because other people are also going to rely on me. This is not something that I was raised with, but something I've consciously decided I need to make an effort in doing, in creating, in building. I can't say that I crave community, but my calendar or my lifestyle is the complete opposite of that. It is one or the other, full stop. Especially for me as someone who's self-employed, it's like I can schedule my day the way I like. Therefore, I have less of an excuse to not curate a life that involves my community if I really want that. Sometimes cancel your workout class at 5 p.m. so you can go cook dinner for your friend that's having a bad day. Sometimes wake up at an ungodly hour to drop your friend off at the airport so they can feel safe and comfortable and excited before their trip and can save $30 to $100 depending on where you live. Instead of feeling stressed about breaking your 5 a.m. wake up streak, you can go hustle girl or guy boss your way into whatever dream you want to achieve. Stay up late on the phone with your friend who's dealing with an issue. And it's like you can live in both worlds. I definitely do, but you can't complain about not having a community if you do not make a conscious effort to inconvenience yourself. I remember there being some tweet thread about this. There's no chance I'm going to find it now, but this kind of discussion was circulating on Twitter maybe a couple of years ago or a year ago. And I remember too seeing comments about how even the way a lot of people that live in big cities, they live in these skyscraper boxes where they don't have a village. They have neighbors, but they don't know the neighbors. They're not connected. They're built in a way where you can avoid people, where you can move throughout them without knowing anybody and it doesn't actually matter. Therefore, if you don't make an effort to see people, if you don't make an effort to build community, it's not going to happen. I even remember when I was younger, it was common to have our neighbors come and ask if we could get an egg or open a bottle. I remember being younger, to be honest, before the world got super crazy, I would be home alone and I would go down to a neighbor or something that I knew my parents trusted to ask them if they can open a bottle for me that I couldn't open. I think that's slightly off topic when it comes to safety and the culture around children and freedom and that kind of thing. But I think there are people watching this who maybe they live alone or they live with a partner or roommates and they may think, oh, it'd be kind of weird if this dude came and asked for an egg or something like that. Meanwhile, most of us are lonely. I can't tell you how happy it makes me when I go to a workout class or I'm walking on the street and I have a little conversation with someone, either because I decided I'm going to spring a conversation up that day or someone else was feeling in the mood. Like, do you know how rare it is for a stranger to randomly spring up a conversation with you and the positive impact that could have? Not to say that you then have to be best friends with that person, but I think it just shows how much we're lacking connection, even though we're so connected, and therefore proving you cannot be passive about changing how lonely you feel. You have to take active, over dramatic measures to overcome it because of where we're at in society. Ultimately, we've let our community muscle atrophy. We've weakened it so much. We need to beef it up. We need some protein badly. And if you are watching this and you want to be a part of that change, or you want to build community because maybe, like me, you want to have a family one day and you want them to grow up around a good, strong community because you know the importance of that. It takes a village. If that is what you think, you're not going to get it by sitting at home doom scrolling, babe. That's not going to happen. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to clock it. Are you clocking what I'm saying? I can't get the Justin Bieber meme out my head. You have to be honest with yourself and then stand on business, okay? Old school community that we're nostalgic about was built on obligation. Instead of posting a Snapchat story rant to their private story, they went to their friend in person to talk about what's going on in their life. Or they actually gave them a call. Every single person was obligated to give something, their time, their earnings, their energy, their presence, and therefore they got something in return. There was no other option. There were not all these convenient options that we have. You have to act. If you've ever taken a Pilates class, sometimes the instructors will say, like if you're doing an ab workout, they might say, pretend you have no feet and no arms. So you really make the intention to contract the core muscle or the deep abdomen or whatever. In this case, you need to do the same thing. You need to pretend like these convenient options do not exist, even though it seems so stupid to act like that, and do the thing that is inconvenient. The more you do that with people, with the intention of building community around people who have the same intention, which majority of us do, you will see a change because other people are going to then respect it and act accordingly. And I think we are really moving into this as a generation. People are getting sick of being online and the brain rot and all that. And everybody wants community in person, but it's like you have to force it. That's like the main point I'm trying to make today. I did see actually another good, it wasn't a whole article, it was just a Substack note about how I think they were actually arguing that you need to be a little bit more individualistic, but the way I perceived it, because I've been thinking about this a lot, it was different. It's like sometimes when you want to make plans with somebody, instead of being like, hey, I want to go hiking, you say, hey, I'm going hiking on Saturday. If you'd like to come, meet me at insert hike place at 6 a.m. in front of X spot with a heart or something like that. And no matter whether they come or not, you go and you don't wait. That was kind of their message. I think similarly, if you want to build community in that way, you need to make an effort to plan things and stand on business. So that does require double texting people sometimes. We know people's lives are busy and things happen and emotions get in the way and all the things. So it's like, hey, we have plans on Tuesday. I'm just reminding you, and I'm also booking the reservation or whatever the thing is. Sometimes you just have to push the buttons a little bit further than you think you should if you don't want to be a part of the problem, if you want things to happen. Not everybody's going to fall for this. And maybe if that's the case, they're not meant to be in your community. Maybe they are happy staying in their individualistic bucket. That's fine. Find people who care. Find people who want to make a change. You need to be honest with yourself and accept the fact that you do not care about community if you are only willing to invest in it if it's convenient for you. That was low-key a bar. Community is built. It's built on sacrifice. It's built on obligation. And if we want to break out of this modern loneliness, this lonely energy it won't solve everything, but a big part of solving that, because it's systemic, is to be the person who makes it harder for people to feel lonely. That's it. We'll talk soon.